like I feel like my breath and time, my mind, my body together with that is suddenly that does manipulate the time, right? Because I'm on my flights, I'm going 300 miles per hour for approximately 40 seconds to 1 minute, right? And that time could feel like to most people like done.
Hey Sean, welcome to the Week Outdoors podcast. Great to have you here.
Awesome, great to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Now, I want to start off with what's been burning a hole in my head since I found out we were going to have a chat. And jumping out of a perfectly good plane is one thing, but jumping out of a perfectly good plane into a thunderstorm, whole different ball game. Like, tell me, how did that come about?
It's sort of a long story. I'll try and run through quickly. That was a stunt that I recently, or a couple of years ago, did in association with REDBULL, and that had kind of been born out, as many fantastic things are, out of a wild dinner with a number of REDBULL affiliates. And, we were kind of like going around the table and everyone's, a bit festive at the moment. And, they were saying like, oh, what's the kind of the craziest thing that you've ever gotten to do or whatever, And I was talking to this lady that was a good friend of mine that was a manager down in Florida. And I was like, look, Florida is one of my favorite places to jump. And one of my favorite adventures really of my life was I was training for an X Games one year. And I had this amazing sponsor down in West Palm Beach near Skydive. It was called Skydive America at the time, right along the lake there. And there were these amazing storms every afternoon in the summertime with like tons of lightning and these crazy things. And at the time, my sponsor was flying this plane for me pretty much just by myself. And like salty old like war pilot that was this like, salty and angry and just like pilot dude from war, right? And just irritated that he was flying me. And so like one day I was just like he was just like talking crap. And I was like, hey, can you fly this thing or just, run your mouth, like at this rate? And he's like, oh, I can fly this thing. I was like, all right, old man. I was pretty young at the time. And I was like, all right, old man. I was like, if you can fly this thing, why don't you chase me out, follow me around, and if you can be there, then we can talk, right? And he's like, oh, so I jump out with my board and I fly over to this cloud and I just start flying around it and I shoot into it and I fly out of it and then just start spinning around, drop head down, and like 3 miles per hour, like, and just sort of like shot out of the way. I landed and this old man, to this day, I've never seen like a transformation of just like spirit before my very eyes, but it was like he got out of that plane so pumped and so charged, and he was just like, that was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Whatever you need, we will do. And then so it was basically just me, this crazy guy, for the summer at this airport. So that was really the beginning, and it just, you could say, evolved from there. But from that point, every afternoon there would be these storms. So then finally this pilot was just like, I talked him into it, basically flying me over this huge thunderhead. They would be like mile wide storms, and he would fly me to the edge of it, drop me over it, and I would basically sky surf into it. And these clouds would be so thick that you could barely see the edge of the board in front of you, And, clouds have that kind of like cold, crisp, almost like metallic taste, and it would be just like really intense. And as far as like keeping your balance on the board, you're in the white room, so you really can't, find your balance in the seat of your pants. There's really dynamic. All of a sudden, like the distance of the cloud, lightning would go off, and the whole thing, all the cloud around, like illuminate, around you. Back into the cloud, and then all of a sudden, like I'm looking at my altimeter, and because I don't know where I am. I'm in this cloud. And then once I'm just like, I got to deploy, I would deploy and try to fly somewhat of a tight pattern so I wouldn't fly over the lake, which was just alligator ridden and no rescue, or too far in any direction that is terrible that I don't know. And then all of a sudden I would pop out of the cloud, probably, under 2,000 feet, leaving me very little time to, navigate to whatever town I ended up opening up over and landing in this thing. And so, like, I have probably 100 jumps doing that with this guy. And at this time, there was no GoPros. Everything was like, people were jumping like these giant high 8 cameras or like little PCs. It slowly evolved into like PC7s and these like small things. But if you even were like on one of these cameras, like the whole lens would fog up and you'd get like the tape would eject and like everything. Like, so there was really no real even opportunity to record any of it, So whole conversation took over at this dinner, and the manager that I was talking to was just like, "We're doing this," and great, just like incredible. And she just like pushed this ball really for about a year, just based off of this like dinner story, and by the time we got to do the jump, it was like we had, Orlando Tower guiding us with their radar system to the cloud nearest us with the most lightning, right? Like, it just became this like amazing opportunity and chance to do it. And it was really hard to capture on film still. It was like, as a thing, it was like we really encountered a bunch of really dynamic difficulties just on the film capturing side, as being able to present it, because we were there for like a week, and it would be like, you're observing the cloud from the ground and it would look dark and menacing, and then you would get up and then all of a sudden above it, it looks really pretty bright and not too bad. So you're like, are you sure? It was like a really a hard visual to get. And then when you would get inside the cloud, even with good equipment, it's still really hard for you to capture and video what's happening. You know what I mean? Like, it's just really hard for it to translate, So it was like and I only say that because it was like in the end, like, of our final project, it was like our best shots were stuff really right on the edges of it and things like that. And even really pulled back a little further away, where you could see like this little dot of me in this like huge storm thing that I'm about to enter. You know what I mean? Because like the second that we're in it, it was really hard to film. It's like, So it was an interesting struggle just from the filmmaking point of view. So, and we were crazy lucky. Like, Florida is just beautiful, and the sky is like, it's funny. Like, people are like, "Oh, where's the most beautiful place?" I jump where I'm like, "Oh, my heart really goes to Florida." A bunch of people like Florida, like really? And I'm like, "Do you ever look up in Florida? Like maybe on the ground, it seems like pretty, like, not mountains or something, but like they get some of the most crazy sky sunset stuff. And if you're living in that place, then all of a sudden it goes from, I'll show you the difference. Like, I'm in California right now, not to knock California, but like, and this is the good part, but like my sky looks like this 340 days of the year or something like that. Whereas if you're in Florida, which is beautiful for many things, but if you live in Florida, it's filled with like cumulus clouds all around you that are like at sunset, pink and purple and blue and a bunch of colors that I just don't know the right name for. So like all the women in my life would be like, "You're colorblind." But either way, gorgeous, and I love it. And it just presents a really different, a remarkably different place to fly. It's become suddenly surreal or unlike anything else.
That's incredible. Excuse my ignorance, but like flying into storms with lightning or into clouds with lightning, is there not some obscene amount of risk attached to that? Or am I just naive and uneducated?
You know what? Let's hedge our bets and say both are possible.
Okay. You're still alive.
Exactly. And yet it is dangerous. You know, I think that one of the things that had so much appeal about that jump for so many people, like for me over at Red Bull, like it was one of our like largest, you know, viewed and sort of impressed images and things like that I've been able to do over the years. And I think a huge part of it is that, like, you know, from like the time that you're a little kid, like all the way up, there's like this, like, you know, a storm can have this it's like this real ominous, scary thing, like, you know, or like, you know, from a kid, you're like counting the time between like the sound and the lightning, you know, seeing if it's getting close or something. But we've all had like this feeling of fear at some point of the storm, and you should. Like, absolutely. Like, if I was to say otherwise, it would be just like so deaf and naive, you know, like, and I am neither, right? I'm merely an adventurer with, for some reason, the keys to the store from now and again, you know, but it was like, it was such a, it had such a sort of, it was such a paradox, because it's like, it was like in one way the most like empowering feeling, and at the same time the most humbling moment, moments of your life, of my life, let's say, where, like, for me, like I've competed for years, and like I've done a lot of like performance oriented stuff and like things like that, where you have risk reward, where you know, I have environment, I have all of these things, but what they really are is like, especially for a young man, they are like the supercharged hubris machine. Do you know what I mean? It's like, which is especially like for this stuff, you know, where it's like you're living at like 300 miles per hour through stuff. And like, you know, there's like this reward system in place for that. That's really just like naive shades with like a head just and saying to charge, which there's good and bad in that. Like there's a lot of success to claim in that space and in that way, right? But you know, that is not like the warm and freezing embrace of nature, right? And like, that's just something else. Like, one is like a court of your peers, you know, like the one that gets the most applause wins, you know, like, yay! That's one space, you know. But then, like, when you take these tools and these things that you got at the store that look shiny and pretty, and then you take them and like slash them through the environment, right? Like being, you know, at 10,000 feet in this like shell of clouds with lightning cracking all around you. Just on the, to answer the harder side of this first, you know, and then I'll say what I roll with to roll for it, you know. But like in that moment, like even in the video, you could see me, and it was really bizarre to see it afterwards, but it would be like, you'd see me go like this, like, oh, and then all of a sudden it would be like, right? But there would be like this, your body, like whether that's like, I mean, whatever it is, I don't, like a feeling, like you could just feel, not to be like too weird, you know, like field theory, like that's like the idea, like all of this space in between us, like filled with these atoms, or this, however you would visualize this gel of the space that we're cruising through, right? it was like right before the lightning would crack, you would feel yourself in that space. Like the whole place would feel like charged, and you'd be like, oh my God, like just like some giant, enormous thing just wrapping around you and just going like, ah, right? Which, you know, in that moment, whatever math, superstition, or feelings of whatever, like you're just in this moment and on this ride in a space that you are clearly insignificant, minuscule, and just like running like a mouse through like a lion den or something. You know what I mean? Like, I'm out. Right. Uh, and beautiful, like, and this chance to, at the same time, seeing and like, being in the middle of lightning going someplace is just a rare, crazy opportunity, you know, like just on just the light side of things, you know what I mean? Whatever, you know, like sets or scapes we climb for to see, you know, like people get climb to Everest, you know, to look up and to look down and to see that thing, and just to be able to get into that rarefied space as a human, to get to see that or experience that, felt just, like I said, really humbling. You know, I felt like the odds were in my favor, you know, when I would speak to everyone that was a lot smarter than me. And they'd be like, well, the odds of you getting struck are, and I'm like, could you relate that to like the lotto, or, you know, like,
driving my car?
Yeah, like let's put it in that sort of scape. And they're like, oh, well, it's approximately like winning the lotto like this or whatever. And I'm just like, I think we're good, you know? And like we were kind of looking at, obviously for me, I had and you know, definitely maybe a misconception, but a really solid thought in my mind, that because I had done this so many times before, it, like at this point, it really just felt like, oh no, this is super doable. You know, you know, like it was just like, no, it's kind of like a trail, or like a, you know, like a line that you would guide somebody down. You know, you're like, oh, that's crazy. It's like, oh no, you can kind of creep around that rock, and there's like a little section or whatever. You know that there's like a, you know what I mean? Like I knew, or I felt really confident that that's like, oh, I feel like if I, you know, I'm kind of like in the outer edges of this thing, playing in the storm this way, you know, then my chances are significantly better. And, you know, all of these things. And I say all this is all the stuff that I said to myself and to everyone in charge, that we would all have great confidence that everything would be fine. Right. But I remember pulling up to the hotel the first evening that we got there, you know, and like, you know, looking up at the sky, and there was like a storm, you know, and some lightning going off, you know. And I think in our minds, you know, everything that I was thinking about was like a strand of lightning, pow, and like me being someplace, and the chances of that feels really small. You feel really confident. And I remember the storm that greeted me at the hotel. Like I'll never forget it. You know, I was pretty excited. You know, it was in the middle of nowhere, and I pulled up at the hotel. I'm like, oh, I'm so excited. I'm like, oh, look, there's a storm setting up for me. Oh, thank you, Florida. You know, open the door. I get out. Oh, yeah, let's go check it out. And I'm looking. Oh, this is gonna be gorgeous. This is gonna be gorgeous. And I mean, like, I'm just waiting, like, not even 15 seconds, and the first like lightning crack that happened over my head was not one piece of lightning, but it looked like a spider web across the sky. like, and I was like, ah! I was like, what I got myself into? And I was like,
too late now.
Yeah. Oh wow! I was not anticipating that. Okay, thank you. That's right. Let me remember where I am, what's going on. Right, that I am like foolish man playing with lightning sky, which is definitely a gamble. But in the end, it was the way that everything had kind of worked out. It worked out.
It's funny, I've over the past few years, I've interviewed all sorts of people who've done all sorts of weird and wonderful things. From like Sean Tumer, the base jumper. I've interviewed Sean. I don't know if you know him, a couple of times, and a whole bunch of people who've done different stuff. And almost everybody says the same thing, that when you get to a certain stage in your career, you can't describe how you manage the risk. It's just about a feeling. It's about a sensation you get inside that it will be good and I will be good. But if somebody asked you to do the math behind it, you'd struggle.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, to a degree, I'm somebody that has trained, for me, my initial path or journey in skydiving was like a solid competitive. So for me, easily my first 5 years of skydiving, I was on 3 different teams, training every discipline of skydiving, surfing, freestyle, freestyle. I would be on another team filming people. I was so immersed in it. You know what I mean? So it's by the time it was there's a lot of things that were worked out in the sense of, okay, just even statistically, or even just for the idea of being able to film it and capture it, where do we have the landing crew, because we're flying all over, and just there's a number of things that just end up being in place. But try to do it as much by numbers, but it's I think in my mind, less by feeling, at least for the last time, in doing that, I had so much experience behind it. It was oh no, I know, it felt more it's fine here. There's a sneaky little lane that, I'm pretty confident that we can wiggle through, you know what I mean? And right from here, that lane looks like a tiny little rope bridge, but in reality, it's a quarter-mile wide bridge that, is super, we could land a plane on.
Yeah.
It's fine. It just looks really bad from here, but it's doable, and it really had more of that vibe for me than a roll the dice sort of thing. So that was an element.
Okay, cool. That's cool. It's interesting. So take me back in time. I'm very curious about how the young boy who went to junior school and high school and had parents became a professional skydiver, sky surfer. What was it your parents did to get you to the point where you're yeah, this is my job now?
Well, yeah, that's an interesting question. So I grew up in New York City. I went to a theater conservatory after high school, and I was doing a lot of theater, and that was kind of really what I was thinking was going to be my job. And that's only to say that my mother was someone that, for whatever reason, was really adamant about us being something that is in a creative space, an artist of some kind, something creative, even if it's if you're an accountant, be creative, whatever the thing was, because artistic elements for her experiment that we were, right? And so she was always very supportive, ultimately, of anything that was, in that vein or something like that. And there was a guy that I was riding motorcycles, which is just significantly more dangerous statistically than skydiving, right? And I was doing a lot of racing and stuff like that. And before I was 18, and illegal racing and different stuff like that. And the guy that I bought my motorcycles from at the time was this old school skydiver that a real badass in his own right. But he had all these pictures, old school pictures of him skydiving all over the walls in his office. And I was like, hey man, how many stupid bikes do I got to buy from you before you take me skydiving? And he was just like, are you even 18 yet? You know? And I was like, I just turned 18. And he's just like, you know, like, let's go, you know? And he took me up there, and, you know, I really had a kind of an epiphany moment. I wasn't like no fear. Like I was just, it wasn't like, I didn't have this like, I wasn't this like loud blow off moment, you know. I was like, I didn't know what to expect. I just went there and kind of was to check it out. And my instructor was kind of a jerk. He wasn't very nice. But like as soon as we jumped out of the plane and you know, I was in that space, you know, from that very first moment, I was just like properly silenced, like for the first time ever in my life, just like, like so connected and so just I didn't know what, but I remember landing and just like almost not having my legs and just being like, oh my God. And I'm like, I'm sure they all thought like I was a dork, you know, like this dork, you know what I mean? Like and I was just like in awe of the thing. And I was like, I didn't know. I was like, man, I don't know what, but like, there's something here for me. Like, but it was just like really clear. I was like, man, I don't know what, but I'm pretty sure the universe just like clobbered me in the head and was like, hey, if you're not a total idiot, you'll pay attention right now to this feeling. And I was just like, okay, I don't know. And I saw a picture of like a video or something of somebody sky surfing. And I was just like, holy crap, that's what I want to do. And like I called the guy. There's only one guy that could teach it in all the country, and he was in California. And I reached out to him, and I was just like, hey, and he's like, oh, you got to have 500 jumps. And I'm like, oh yeah, I got 500 jumps. I think I had like 70 at the time. and he was like, and you got to be like a good, they called it like shoot a Z flyer, which is like a sit flying, what they used to call free flying. Let's go with an outdated name. And I was like, yeah, I'm like the guy for that at my drop zone. And I'm like, and I'm looking at my friend, shoot a Z, like what's he talking about? You know, like I didn't know anything. I just knew that I just knew. And and he was like, okay, you know, come on out. I flew out there, and I was like, it really just came naturally. Like I was just doing things, just came very naturally. I was doing helicopters and tricks, and everything felt really easy. And was flying home, and the guy that coached me calls my drop zone, the skydiving center that I came from. And he's like, hey man, I don't know what your policy is. Like super California guy at this time, he's dead, but he was an awesome guy. But he's just like, hey man, I don't know what your policy is, but you need to sponsor this guy. I was like, and I didn't know he's calling. I had no idea that he's calling this drop zone. And he's like, listen, I don't know what your policy is, but there's the X Games and all this stuff is happening. And this guy is like, you have to sponsor him. You're a fool if you don't. And he gives us his little like Mighty Ducks speech or like whatever, you know, like go Sean. Right? And then like there's like this silence, and they're like, who? And he's like, yeah, he's like this, and you know, then this, and he's describing. They're like, you taught that guy to sky surf? He's got 8 jumps. You're like a criminal. What are you doing? You guys in California are idiots. And my buddy, the guy's just like prank call, you know, like, and like, and you know, they did not sponsor me when I got back. For the record, they were like, they were not receptive. But that guy became my like hero, you know, and he ended up getting me a sponsorship in Florida and connected me with like my mentor that totally got me, you know, aligned for my medals and everything else. And that was the journey. And my mom was just like wildly supportive pretty much the whole time. And you know, I was really fortunate to have really a couple of just amazing mentors. And I don't even know if that's really a thing anymore. You know what I mean? But it was like, but it was really like such a gift for a young person in a pioneering space, you know, that was so internally aggressive, right? Like something that's really like, you know, alone in the space, you know, charging yourself, right? It was, and I couldn't even, crucial as a young man, being able to have like some of these mentors just to be like, just pull the chain a little bit, know when to let it go, like those are just solid things in high speed adventures, anything, right?
Do you think it was the feeling of, what was it, freedom or control or connection with the world? What were those feelings that ran through you when you're like, this is going to be the rest of my life?
I think, man, it's such a good question, because it's like to answer it honestly, like it's hard because it's like talking about love or religion or, any of those things. But for me, and I feel so blessed or lucky or fortunate or whatever that like I could hear it. But there's been, if I had a superpower, it wouldn't be, I've got kids. So like everything, there's going to be a lot of cartoon language in this thing, right? So if I had a superpower, right, and I had to describe it, it wouldn't be flying, despite what the obvious one would be, but it's really been that like, I feel like I've been able to hear like when that like tuning fork has just like hummed, like whenever that is, I've been really like, for some reason I can hear that. And I've been able to just like, I was like, oh no, I hear it, and like for me, I felt really lucky to have had that in a couple different moments, whether that's, like for me in sky surfing, like when I was at the X Games and like my signature move, like the first thing that I really like blew out with was something called the Invisible Man, where I was doing in excess of 12 revolutions per second. And so I'm standing up, spinning over 12 of those in the span of one TikTok, right? And I was holding that spin for 10 seconds, 15 seconds. And in the space of training that and learning that thing, and I called it the Invisible Man because when you would film it, you could just see through me in the board. So it just looked like I was invisible. Or go about to be invisible. You could see me, but like just a joke, like it's just a visual. Sort of thing. Yeah, exactly. But and in that process, it was like I ended up like hurting myself, pretty bad. Just like some different weird, like you have weird injuries that you incur for something like that are like centrifugal force G related injuries. Like when I was first learning how to stop that move, or if I fell out of it or something, all the blood in my hand suddenly went to the outside of that spin rather than held in tight, like a circle. Then all of a sudden what would happen is all the blood would leave my torso and like rush into my arms and like expand my veins. And so like I had like capillary damage, and it was like my hands would be too swollen to like close or to like to deploy, to fly properly, so it's like I'd make this like homemade G suit, like sleeves and these things. I was like living across the Cape from I was in Titusville, right across from NASA. And one of the riggers that the rigger that put soft links on the space shuttle rather than hard links to that parachute that slows it down.
Yeah,
that guy was funny, and he worked out a bunch of different stuff with me, but he like helped me with this like suit thing, and I was able to do this other stuff. But in that process, there was just so much. It's such a crazy like feeling. I think when you feel balance and you feel like it's hard to describe what like feeling what interacting with like an element, like interacting with an element is such a hard thing to describe what the connection that makes you feel. whether that's you like on a wave, whether that's you in the wind, whether that's you like gravity of like anything, right? This thing where you're like somehow harnessing this invisible force and creating velocity that you could never achieve by yourself. There's this weird, you know, Eros and Thanatos thing, you know, that, you know, is really empowering. There's such a weird thing there. And in that space, it's that times like a million. You know what I mean? Let alone if you're in a Florida sky while it's happening, right? And it looks like an Easter egg factory exploded in the sky around you. And, you know, when you hit that spin properly, what ends up happening is like I never get dizzy because I'm basically looking through my feet to the ground. And once you spin at a certain rate, what ends up happening is the board suddenly looks like it's standing still and the rest of the world looks like it's spinning beneath you. And then all of a sudden, like the tighter that you pull in and the more that you're able to like hold and just breathe and tighten in this whole thing, then all of a sudden this thing just speeds up and hums even more and more to the point where it's like silent and it looks like you're just on the very tip of the earth and it's just spinning beneath you at whatever rate you're controlling. That's a crazy experience as a visual. Like, you know, that's like a tunnel vision, ground rush, lock in visual that occurs that it's really hard to break yourself out of. Like you get into that space and it's just somehow all consuming just to be in that, whatever that connective thing is. Yeah. And it's like that.
I love it. It's like, yeah, that's it. I got it. The thing that sprung to my mind, because, you know, I sit here and ask questions and sometimes I think, holy crap, what if somebody asked me that question? What would I have said? And with my background in whitewater kayaking. And it's almost a bit like The Matrix. You know the film The Matrix, where they like shoot the bullets, totally slow down time and dodge it.
Yeah.
It's a weird degree of I'm now manipulating time and controlling more than maybe I should be able to.
Absolutely. And not at least a tourist in a different space, right?
Yeah, that's it. But it's The Matrix. That's Keanu Reeves' Matrix. That's the thing that comes to my mind. It's I was thinking about, you know, one of the hardest whitewater rapids I ever paddled was in the Himalayas in Nepal, and like the waves on this river, this rapid, were 4 to 5 stories high in height in terms of how big they were. I mean, it's just epically ginormous, the noise and the volume and everything else. And yet it was silent, it was calm, it was slow, it was methodical. I was manipulating the world as opposed to the world manipulating me. And I think that's what you're saying at the same time is something similar to that.
Sure. Absolutely. It's whatever that flow state is, but in an incredible landscape where you're harnessing something so powerful, or playing, not even harnessing and playing with, you know, whether it's the water or any of, you know, all of any of those elements, really, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I like the phrase the flow states, because I think that loads of human beings experience the flow states and never really find a way of recreating that flow state for themselves. Like they have it, they like it, they enjoy it, it's beneficial for them, and yet they never maybe let themselves go back and experience it a second time, or find a way of having the tap to turn it open. Because do you find you can take that sensation you get in the sky and apply it to other parts of your life?
Yes, definitely. I think though, I think that I've been doing it a long time, like over 20 years, over 220 or over 22,000 jumps, like this whole thing where it's like it's such a vast amount of experience. And all I mean by that is that I think that sometimes it's it's always a challenge to get so for example, I think that like the real, like the flow state that's not just like meditative or your martial art, right? Like not just something of that, which is hugely of value, but is just it's a different thing, right? It's just a different animal, or a different, but whatever the non-offensive way of just calling it different, right? Because it's just delightfully different. I embrace all of those things. Martial arts has been a part of my whole life. Meditation has been a part of my whole life. But they're just vastly different from meditating in that space, or whatever, the flow state of that life or death decision making balance, like those are different places, right? Different intensity, right? And let's say, and I think that in reality, like sometimes to create that like high intensity flow state, right? That's a lot. There's a lot to build to pinnacle for that moment. And like the line in the sand just gets washed forward, right? So like that definitely becomes a harder egg to crack, or however the phrase might be. But I think but I feel like the lessons of it, and there's a number of like, whether like even in like my friends and students, where like your intimidation factor, like what's going to intimidate you, is significantly less. Whether that's, you walk into a boardroom, or you walk into an audition, or you walk into an interview and you feel nervous or whatever, like that feeling you would get not even on an adventure, just before the door opens on the plane. You know what I mean? No matter how many times that door opens and you're like, oh, what? Right. And you're walking to the edge of that thing, and all of that silliness dispels, and you leap out, and you know that you could do anything, and you remember yourself or what you are capable of. And I feel like that feeling, that moment stays very easily, like not even like my most death defying, you know what I mean? But just like even that moment just like sets you, when I'm walking through a door, I'm walking into a space, I'm walking into that door space like that. Like the plane door just opened, and I'll walk in and like fly through. Like let's you have to be so in the moment and so present and so not necessarily like confident, but you have to be subjective. Like you have to be like viewing the space from your eyes out. If you're out here looking at you doing in the moment, you're like 2 seconds behind and you're about to get hurt. You know what I mean? Whereas like now you're in this super present space, and I think that's, enables you to at least be your best in that moment and give your best opportunity. And I think that carries forward really easily.
It's interesting you mentioned there about the nerves, when the plane door opens, and probably you still feel that flutter today when it's a mixture of nervous excitement, maybe, when the door opens. And I wonder whether, for me, that's like the thing to be grateful for, because it's the ticket to the game. The apprehensive nerves is the ticket to the game. And I think that most people have been conditioned to run away from that sensation. And that's why they don't get to have that flow state or that heightened level of being, is because they actually run away from the ticket, as opposed to grabbing hold of the ticket and going, I recognize that this is the thing that accesses me, that sensation.
100%. And I would add just even like a little spice to that, where because I work with military, I work with a bunch of different people, and this thing of fear it's such it's a real thing to talk about and think about, because like whether you're brave versus courageous, whether you just are someone that just your fear hasn't been tested, so it looks like you're fearless, but you just haven't come across the spider that terrifies you or whatever your little thing is, right? And like when you do, all of a sudden you're a cowering girl and you're like, oh, you just weren't afraid before. I mean, we still need that, but like, let's recognize that difference. But I think that fear, a lot of people interpret as them suddenly, for the first moments of their life, being like the ultimate prognostic, like they're suddenly psychic. All of a sudden they can tell the future, and this feeling of doom inside of them is actually them seeing the future in a vision, and that's what's they're saving themselves with this psychic vision of the future, right? But these are people that like have never won a lottery. They never win the raffle. They are not like psychic people, right? Their girlfriends took ice cube trays, right? Like, so they're not psychics. This is not that's really unlikely your thing on any level. And just remembering that it's really just like your senses tingling, and that, how you color it and interpret it is suddenly like that's your psychology. There's a whole bunch of things that you're doing to shape it, when in the end, all it is like, like systems on, everything is firing. Let's do it. Like, you know what I mean? That's how I, and I think that people are, so inclined to confuse those two things, right? Like they're really like confusing this feeling of their body going, hey, I'm alert. Your eyes are open. Your ears are, I'm looking and listening and trying to feel everything right now. Anything. I'm just trying to feel it all. Right. And I think that people confuse that with like, now they're like looking through the crystal ball of whoever, whatever, and it's suddenly doom and gloom, rather than looking at it like, oh no, all my sensors are on. I want to breathe now. And that way my eyes can just interpret. I'm going to stop thinking a little bit, and I'm just going to watch and then try to access that like fast twitch response of things, which, like I said, in my mind, I think is like psychologically, the key of that is just being completely like inside of yourself, in this like subjective place where you are present and in your body, to your fingers and to your toes, rather than mentally in this place where you're here looking at yourself and judging, oh yeah, go left, oh right, like in does that make sense? Is what I'm describing totally crazy? Or
no, I get it. I'm nodding and chuckling because I felt it. I know it.
Okay, right. Like, I know it sounds crazy, right? But like that, like I feel like, and I feel like the only thing that, really is going to tie my mind into my body is my breath. You know what I mean? And to go, when you're talking about time, like I feel like my breath and time, my mind, my body together with that is suddenly, that does manipulate the time, right? Because I'm on my flights, I'm going 300 miles per hour for approximately 40 seconds to 1 minute, right? And that time could feel like, to most people, like done. Do you know what I mean? But to me, like I'm doing like 30 moves in it, where all of a sudden, like what felt like tick tock, I'm going tick. Talk. Tick, right? Like there's so much life in those seconds. When you're doing 12 revolutions in 1 second, it's so much life is happening in there that it couldn't be a blur. If you were in that moment like a blur, you could never make it happen to you. Right? It's like you have to be experiencing inside of that space, controlling inside of that space, right? And I think that's just like a fascinating process.
Yeah, I just we'll move on, but I think that a lot of people get numb to their own senses through some process that happens to them, often throughout schooling or childhood or early adulthood. And then when they do feel something new, like that apprehensive nervousness of I'm about to do X, it's so overwhelming to them because they haven't felt it for such a long period of time or haven't experienced it for such a long period of time. They're like, oh, I better be scared of it and run away. And they like miss the bullseye at the same time. That's yeah.
No, I totally agree.
I'm gonna have to go think about it.
No, I totally agree.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, and it's it's such a different time too, because whether you talk about like risk reward, you talk about, and it's not even talking about like a year and a half of everybody being shut down and all of these other things, and this things separating us all, and we're such pack creatures, you know what I mean, or social animals, and it's been such a crazy process that I really think that when I look at how most people are getting their things, I talked to this kid, and he was talking about skateboarding, and he's like, oh yeah, I can do I can ollie about 3 feet, and I do like shove it, heel flip, land to blind 180 down the pipe. And I'm just like what? I'm just like, okay, you're amazing. You know what I mean? I'm like, I've got my Red Bull hat on, you know what I mean? So like they're expecting something, and like this kid's just calling out tricks that are like mind benders, I was like, I didn't realize I was here. I was like, I left Sheckler at the other place. Like, give me a break, man. I would have brought some backup here, And then like the kid's like, and I'm like, dude, here's my board. Show me this. I don't even know what you're talking about. And he's like, no. On Tony Hawk 4 or whatever video game he was talking about. And then I had this like epiphany where I'm just like, oh, I'm like, you're calling that skating too? Like in his mind, that was him being a skateboarder. And his host of experiences and those things were like at that level, right? So like, do I think you're getting excitement and triggered and maybe even a flow state or any of those things playing the video game of that? Maybe. Are you learning how the board rotates and how that would physically, maybe, cost free. You're not hitting a sidewalk. You're not, viscerally in this thing, right? And so like, I think on some level, and I got 3 kids, so not to like steer over into that range, right? But like on some level, like when that is how they're building their stress tolerance, right? To that, like, oh no, I worked my ass off today. Does that make sense? You were like candy crushing or something, right? Like that's different from, you know what I mean? Like that's different from training. That's different from what you get from any of those other things. And so like, I think that, finally when people get to some of these other like real states, like real, like, oh, animal in the wild on earth, right? Like a real life experience, your stress level tolerance is significantly different. Right? It's significantly different. Or you're just like completely naive to it. Like those people like, this is totally safe. I can't believe everybody doesn't do this all the time. How come everyone, let's do this? They're paddling down your thing. You're like, whoa, slow down. You're like, no, I got this. Oh, this is so easy. Why does everyone say paddling so hard? Right? You're like, yeah. Oh my God, here we go. So like, whatever the balance between those two things are, but I think it's harder, and I think we have a harder recognition of it.
because there is a funny thing, ignorance being bliss. It is a very funny. There is a very funny truth to, naive people get away with crazy shit that really should kill them. And it's almost because they don't know it should kill them, they seem to survive. And then the same person 2 years later suddenly becomes aware it could kill them. And then they start having sporty moments where they actually could kill them. And so it's a funny line between how much do you really want to know? Because you probably don't want to know everything. Like what the real math of being hit by lightning in a cloud. Like you probably don't want to know that because it may change your judgment. Whereas the feeling of confidence of I've got this, I can be in this lane and I can do it. That breeds your success. So it's a funny place to be.
Well, I think that people forget the biblical proverb, God protects drunks, babies, and fools. And I've got some friends that are all three at the same time. And that seems to be just like a real deal Holyfield thing that, I leave for the ages to figure out. But and there's a balance of it. But I think that sometimes, I think having tunnel vision to your target in certain moments is the essential to survival in high speed moments. Like your ability to see the chin, to see the line, to see the thing, when everything's bobbing around, going crazy. Like that's what the thing is,
Cool.
So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Let's leave it. So there's a whole bunch of, correction. One of the questions I've been asked most over the years is by usually people who are 10 to 15 years younger than me. And at that point in time, they saw me with free kayaks and free paddles and free dry suit and money. And I've kayaked on every continent on planet Earth on expeditions apart from Antarctica. And they're like, how do you get sponsored? I want to get sponsored. And I've answered this question in my version of events, but there you are, the guy with the Red Bull hat on. There's tens of thousands of kids who bike, board, do all sorts of things who'd love to wear that cap and have the recognition of being part of Team Red Bull. How do they achieve it and what's real?
I am the most anticlimactic person to ask this question. I'm really not the most fun person to answer this question. Because I get asked this question a lot also, and I'm always just genuinely, I'm one, I think because nobody, when I was 18 and people were oh, what do you want to be? And I'm a sky surfer, nobody was just genius. This kid's going places, right? Nobody was like that. People are imbecile, gonna die, right? Nobody was oh, an untapped art, future sport, whatever. No, it was the opposite reaction. So I'm always look, if you have a dream and you have a vision, you know what I mean? And just really never giving up on it. And I genuinely believe that, to my heart. I remember seeing an interview of the guy that invented the stationary bike. And they were asking him about his success. And he's like, look, everybody thinks that I'm a genius right now, but I had this bike creation in my living room for 10 years and everyone said I was an idiot. And now it's a gazillion-dollar industry or whatever, and it's just if you have this vision, you got to just not give up on it and pursue it and whatever that thing is. Right. And that's a genuine part of it. But for me and my, heritage or my, origin story, of the thing, it really was I was hey, go get a medal, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, maybe 6, maybe more, right? Show that you're amazing, produce those things, and then those people will like the cream rises and, work your butt off and go get a gold medal. Like that's not an easy answer for anyone, but like, Red Bull or like some of those companies, they're Fortune 50 companies. And the idea that they are sponsoring, or which people sponsor, that means that's like driving our sport. It's like pushing and elevating everyone's experience and everything when those people invest in our sports, just on any level, right? So for them, they want to invest in the people that, have gold medals or have invested in those things. And that's really just my personal origin of it. Like, I think if you go and you compete and you train and you do those things, then you present yourself in that place, and they're like, they don't have any choice but to be like, yeah, this guy's the man, give him a match, It's like, kick down the door with the axe that you built, right, out of bones of your enemies, and then storm the castle, okay? Theyll give it to you. But that's like, everyone is like, they stop listening at Go Train, because there really is there's a new world, and part of it is being aware of it. And like, so you think about social media and you think about YouTube and you think about these things, a lot of times there is a real thing where like you can, there is a path to a lot of these things through alternate channels. And that's part of what I mean by like following your dream or doing these things. Like maybe you don't like, hey man, I don't have this opportunity to go train and get a gold medal and all of that stuff. Sean stomped on my dreams. That dude's a dick, right? Like, no, I am saying the opposite. I said, go make an axe out of the bones of your enemies and storm the castle, right? Like, so like in my mind, like if that isn't an avenue for you, but you have this passion and this dream, go work your ass off so that you make sure that when you get the opportunity, you don't look like a dork, right? But you have all these other tools and ways for you to build yourself now and present whatever is your art, whatever is your project, right? Like we have platforms now with YouTube, with Instagram, with TikTok, with all of these things that ultimately give like what would be the underground local badass that wasn't able to like elevate to nationals or to, whatever the event was. But like everybody in the world knows that he's the guy, right? Like, does that guy have to go get a gold medal? Man, 10 years ago, hell yeah, that guy needs to shut up and go get a medal still, right? Yeah, because it takes more than that, right? Like everyone was that. Everyone was the local badass that everyone thought was great. And you had to go get a medal anyway, right? So like, but now you really have the opportunity, and I think it's amazing, right? Where it's like you can train and be gold medal caliber and potentially get your images and get your message out there and get an opportunity, that you deserve, that you earned, that you worked in this totally unique, modern way, right? Like that I totally don't hate on at all. Like I don't know if you follow my Instagram, but I'm really working on my videos. I make awesome edits. Like my game is strong in this thing. Like I'm all about it, right? Like I think that is a genuine, it's like a new, it's like a new discipline that you would have to throw into your martial arts. Like all of a sudden people are just really good at jabbing with their elbows. Oh, shit, I gotta learn my elbows, right? Like, but there's this whole other media that's an opportunity for people to be wildly successful, without going the avenue that I went, specifically, right? But, and all I would say to sprinkle for them, just whatever wisdom old extreme adventure dude would have, is just know that like you can talk your way into almost any room imaginable. You can talk your way to the edge of the cliff of fire with people that are laughing about to jump into a cliff of fire, and you can talk your way into that room. Just make sure that you can fly out of it. right? And so
yeah.
that's where I would say still train and still make sure you have the things to keep your wits about you once you get in there. And that's the only part where I say don't neglect that completely in the pursuit of the other side.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, there's no, yeah. You got to be able to leave the room, don't you? That's the thick and thin of it. Or at the end of the day, Red Bull wants Red Bull isn't just giving you it doesn't just give you free stuff. They actually want a return on investment. They're a business at the end of the day, and I think that it's a trading arrangement where they actually want to get a bit more from you than they give you, and you need to be aware that possibly getting sponsored is actually the easiest thing. Staying sponsored is probably the hardest thing because there's always somebody tapping on your shoulder.
Well, and I just think, and like, so for example, if, like to me, Red Bull, what they're really amazing about is like, they really, if you think of Deirdre as like this really specific, like art collector, like what he finds beautiful and amazing and cool expressions of human stuff, human art is like these flying, racing, crazy mutant things, like mutant people, right? Like that just are doing on a different level. Like, you know what I mean? And he like collects these things and be like, I have Van Gogh and Picasso and Frida Kahlo and Dali and I got these guys, and I make them go paint. Right? They said that they could paint, and they said that they could do stuff. I give them the chance to paint and do stuff. Right? I love it. It's great. And then for them as these artists, right? Remember, it's like that their job is to paint and do these like beautiful things and do this stuff, right? And like, and part of that is like living and not getting hurt, and also like on some level. At least in my mind, for my, brand or whatever, right? Like I want to show these things and inspire things that are not like death defying, right? Like I'm not a Russian roulette guy. There's plenty of them out there, and there's plenty of stunts, and there's plenty of ways to do what I'm doing in a Russian roulette fashion that will like totally try and run that game, for that fame that is as fleeting as you get it, right? But they think like if I make it, I'll be a legend. It's like people always gonna remember you. Always gonna remember you. Chill out. Take the pace. You got to walk away, and that's got to be in the equation. And like I want to inspire people to fly and to have a long journey flying and enjoying this space, right? Like you can have a long life flying in the most beautiful way, and like in basically like a superhero, like it's like having a superpower drug, right? Like if I told you, hey, I got this thing I want to give you. It's in my pocket. It's okay. We don't have to tell your wife. She might get upset. Okay. But listen, I'm going to give it to you. And you can literally fly around the sky. And like all you have to do, I'll show you what to do. I'll give it to you. And then all you got to do is you make a shape with your body, and then you'll shoot across the sky at 300 miles per hour. And we're going to go do this for like 10 minutes. The whole thing will be like 10, 15 minutes max. And then you can go home, and we won't tell anyone. Okay. I'm going to give it to you now. And it's a jump ticket.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And it's like totally insane. Like we could be you and I right now could be shooting across the sky at like 110 miles per hour, just talking to each other, giggling like fools. Do you know what I mean? Like there's no, I'm really proficient at a number of different sports, right? And I enjoy them all. I love the water. I love the mountains. I love those things, but there is nothing as empowering as gravity and flying. Like it's literally like this, and now we're shooting across the sky at 100 miles per hour, right? There's nothing that affords you this power. Like if I move my chest like this, I'm shooting across the sky like this, right? I go, yeah, kick my leg out, and all of a sudden, shooting across the sky in the other direction at 100 plus miles per hour. I'm like, let's get out of here. We make like a needle, and we're 300 miles per hour at the Earth, right? Like, man, if there's something else, show it to me because I've been looking, right? But it's so just as it's totally self-indulgent and delightful and well worth it, right? And you're totally just it's just like art. And I think so for all the people, like whether it's being sponsored or any of those things, in the end, right? And it seems so cheesy, right? But like the sponsorship which is the end result of a lot, should not be your first goal, right? The first goal really needs to be like your passion for, at bare minimum, before you even have technique or anything, you got to at least have a strong life gambling passion for something.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Not like, hey, how do I get sponsored by Red Bull? And it's like, oh, well, what do you do? And it's like, I don't know. What will they sponsor? Right? I'll do it. I'll go do it. If they want snowboard, I'll go learn to snowboard. I'm that guy. Like, you want a driver? I'll go learn to drive. Right? Like, that's not probably, like, I have not seen that be a key to success. It seems to me like success, and most of the time, has been like at least for people to sponsor, right? Like people can be independently wealthy and maybe achieve success that way, but they're not receiving sponsorship and aid in that cycle, right? I think that most people, that if they want to invest, they're not investing in someone that's coming to make money. That's what an accountant and a lawyer's for. Right. you got a CPA? You know what I mean? Go get that. Right. But like, if you have a genuine passion for it, like I've known some people that are, fair beginners that end up being amazing ambassadors for sports and things because they're just so passionate and in love with it, that journey and that thing is really lovable. Right. And everybody, like, people like to embrace that. People want that too, And so, like, I don't think that it would be called a sponsorship. I think it would be called a collaboration. Right. And they would do a video with Red Bull, and they wouldn't get a Red Bull athlete only hat. Right. But it's a different journey. It's just, you know what I mean? Like, but I think that if you have, like, if you're strongly passionate and you really have a love for this thing or a craft and a thing, then I think that you have something probably positive to offer. Whether some people get it, don't get it, whether I get it, don't get it, right? You probably got something that's coming from a place that's good. But there's people at their journey that always appreciate watching other people. But it's not to be confused with what people appreciate about people at the end of a training.
That's it. I like that. I've always said to people, whatever you do, pick the thing you want to do with the mindset that you never want, never intend, or never need to get a sponsor or get revenue from it or whatever else. You'll do it for the rest of your days because you love it that much, regardless, even if it's just on Sunday mornings, because that's all the time you've got. But you'll do it for the rest of your days. And if you have that inside of you, finding the sponsor and finding the other stuff happens just organically. They find you.
That's what I mean. It's the last step, right? It's really the last. It's not the first step. And I think that and I've known some people that, have tried to jump some of those stages, you know what I mean? That like were fairly novice, risked it all, survived to make a viral video, get the opportunity. And then they don't have anything but a Russian roulette, right? Like they don't have, like, they're like, okay, you're obviously badass. Here you go, do something. And they're like, oh, I don't do anything. Like, I don't actually, like, like that was it. That was my thing. Like you, like I said, you want to make sure that talking yourself, like what we're doing is talking about getting into the room of whether it's sponsorship or production or any of those things, and then making sure you have what they're like some of these like elite spaces or rarefied air rooms or whatever, that you wish to get into, right? Like you can cloak and dagger and I'm in the room now. Fool to them, right? And then now all of a sudden it's like, all right, you're in the room. Well, you've got to be able to produce and do it, right? Because now all of a sudden you'll be with people that are like, okay, here, there's your wish list. Go do it. And then you're like, what? They're like, oh yeah, here you go. What? I vaguely recall you said something about Cliff of Fire, right? Are you that? You were the Cliff of Fire guy, right? Cliff of Fire. Okay. Do we have laser? Let's add some laser sharks. You got a deal? Okay, boom, go. And now you got like, oh, well, okay, I'm gonna train for a year. And it's like, oh no, you got to do this next week. You're supposed to have already trained before you got here, and now you got to dude on the edge of the Cliff of Fire, I guess. Here I am. The Cliff of Fire, right? You're not even going to get to enjoy that ticket. So
no, you might not even survive it. So then,
and which is just sad. It's scary and sad because it's so misled, and it's unfortunate. I don't want to see that, especially, to be honest. Like I kid, but like in reality, like I don't want to see that of anybody, least of all somebody that's really talented, right? That like you go to like in Europe, if you're into motorcycle racing, right? Like you got to get a license per cc, right? Like, you know what I mean? Yep. Whereas like in space, a lot of these spaces, it's like once you get in, it's like, okay, off you go.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Go kill yourself.
Is anybody watching me or telling me what to do anymore? Nope. Enjoy. And they're like, nobody's going to tell me to stop or pump the brakes. Nope. Enjoy. And that's part of the good thing. But most people are terrible at pumping the brakes for themselves. Mm-hmm. Like everyone likes to rebel against whatever system is trying to regulate them, whether it's finance, whether it's political, whether it's, on the street, whatever, right? Like nobody wants to be controlled or any of this system of regulation. But like they're incapable of regulating themselves in anarchy, right? Like if it was like, hey, no, it's fine. Hey, yeah, I'm totally fine with everybody regulating themselves. As long as I live in a place where everyone has an aspect of morality and is not utterly desperate, then I don't want any rules, right? Because I know you're not looking into, you got your own thing. You're so busy doing your own thing, being nice, right? I get to just worry about my thing and be nice, right? But the world doesn't work that way.
Yeah, freedom's the thing that you desire until you have it, and then it can be terrifying if you're not ready for it. That's the reality, isn't it?
Yeah. It's fun. You just need to learn how to shift the gears as you go. Right. But I think that's the crux. That's whatever that crux is, right? Just learning that now you're in an open space, that you have this freedom, that you are the only person to pump the brakes. So you're wrestling your own ego beast and all of those things. So that's the pace of the race, as it were.
Cool. So we're coming towards the end of our time together, but one of the things I'm always curious about with people like yourself, you've been at the cutting edge of sky surfing, skydiving now for 20, 25 years, something like that. And you're still here to tell the tale. What I wonder is, you've seen the sport evolve. What do the next evolutions look like? What can we expect to see?
Wow. I'm kind of mind blown, really. I think there's a lot of innovations that are coming, and it feels like just kind of like in the real world, just like how technology is evolving a lot of things, which is hopefully evolving and assisting us, either as individuals or collectively, right? And I feel like skydiving is having a lot of the technological stuff is bleeding over to us, whether it's cameras, whether it's equipment, right? And like the sport itself is growing in ways where like the parachute that I fly today would blow the mind of the person that I was flying 10 years ago. Like it blows the mind of like I'm flying a 69 square foot parachute and I'm flying across rooftops and grinding the edges of them as I go by. So like, I mean, like, was that possible with the parachute from 10 years ago? No. No. Right? Like the wingsuits that they have now for base jumpers, and like I'm not doing much base jumping now, but like you're talking about like them like used to need to find like a cliff that was like a 500-foot drop off before you'd be able to build enough speed for you to start flying with your wingsuit. Now it's like 200 feet, 100 feet. It looks like people are running down a hill and starting to fly a wingsuit. Do you know what I mean? Like they're just incredible. I haven't seen it, but I really hope they make a self-packing parachute. That'd be nice. Like a again, just daydream. If anybody out there with great vision could make that happen, I'd be quite pleased. That'd be helpful.
Save you
man, it would just make you happier. Just be a more pleasant experience. But like there's no telling, and that's not even counting realistically, which I'm thinking of all the time, the different vehicles, right? Like Richard Branson, yes, please. Right? I'll hang on to the rocket you ditched, right? Like at least ditch me out with the garbage, right? Right? So like it's somewhat endless for, you know what I mean? Like obviously as all of those things evolve and they just become something else, I'll be honest, I think that as drones and all of these other things, like I think that we're going to be, single man flying things, like I think that my kids, when they're an adult, they're going to be flying something, So like, I think that all of that evolved is going to come from this space on some level, you know what I mean? So, because just on some reality, all the SOPs for every one of those vehicles is going to be a reserve parachute. So, you want to take that hover bike to 500 feet, don't you? Right. So, I think the whole thing is, I hope, evolving and making it happen, because I'm really wanting them to put a phaser cannon on the moon that they can shoot me back at Earth from, and I'm just waiting on them. I feel like at this point, just waiting on them. Like I'm here, I've put the idea out, just need for them to put the phaser cannon in.
Well, the guy jumped from the balloon on what was
the
it?
Edge of space, right?
Edge of space. So if you can go, what next?
Exactly, and he broke the sound barrier, right? Felix. I mean, it's like what? It sounds funny, like it's like this was a REDBULL stunt. It was like this was like a huge thing for people. Right. Like that was like the whole world watched and embraced that thing and saw it as somebody doing something is like breaking into that space again for the first time in a long time and going like, hey, us just doing these things that are thought to not be possible is just really good for people. Right. It's just inspiring and motivating. And the power and value of that is so huge, that I think it's funny, like we lose sight of that so much, and all the amount of whatever that juice is that inspiration and motivation. Like you can't this 2020 or 2019, you can't get 5 people in a coffee shop to agree on the milk to use in their coffee. Right? Like, let alone getting 1.5 2 gazillion whatever people to just be like totally like embrace watching each other and feeling like, oh my God, right, we do stuff like this, don't we? Right. And like, we're badass, right? Like everyone just like loved this thing and was so moved by it. Right. And the lightning storm that we had done, I felt like the part of the thrill of that was just like every kid has like quaked in their room at some point over a lightning storm, and they feel this horror or whatever. Like everyone, like I got like soldiers and mariners that are like, you did what? Right? No, you know, like, no, you did what? But like, you know, to us, we really had a vision for the finish line without any lightning passing through the road. And, you know, and going and doing that, people, I think, are just inspired by that and see that it does some invisible thing that's lovely.
That's awesome. So, Sean, I just want to thank you for A, spending some time with me today, but B, for inspiring a generation of people to go out there and do more cool shit, push themselves, challenge themselves, and maybe follow in your footsteps in whatever their version of that is. I think the world needs more Seans out there showing, you know, you still can be a mid-40s Red Bull sponsored dude. If I had a hat, I'd take it off, because I think that's a pretty awesome achievement. If I had hair, actually, as well, that's the other missing part.
I was hiding bedhead, not no. But
yeah, so
yeah, absolutely. I hope so, and I dare you, right? Like I got like a nice little like quiver of wild ones just raising up, chasing and hitting the scene. It's important, and I look forward to seeing what you all do.
I can't wait. And when I come to California, once COVID's left South Africa, I want to come jump out of a plane with you. I've never done it, and it sounds like a good thing to do.
Mandatory.
Done. I'll be there. I've got friends in your neck of the woods. I'll see you.
Dude, please do. Well, I'll give you a Red Bull version of a tandem.
Oh, crap.
We'll see how many flips you're capable of. That's what we'll do.
Without puking. Sean, if folks want to come and hang out with you, meet you, follow you, whatever else, where's the best place for them to find you?
So the best places are on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok. And I'm just at my name, at Sean MacCormac. Sort of a strange last name spelling, but my name's SeanMacCormac. And there's always all kinds of wild flying stuff with boards and wingsuits and cameras and helicopters. And if you've ever been curious about any of that stuff, come check it out. There's definitely something there for you.
Fantastic. Well, we'll put all that in the links below. Sean, have an awesome, great rest of your day. Go jump out of a plane or whatever you've got in your schedule today. And I look forward to the next time speaking to you.
Awesome. I hope it's strapping you up straight out of a plane.
I sincerely hope it is, actually. It just might be the thing we don't tell them about.
All right, there you go. I have the jump ticket in my pocket for you.
Done.